Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's Saturday morning. Not a morning where I usually make an episode, but I haven't been able to all week. It's been kind of another crazy week in the life of the Jazz Shepherd. Of course, I'm mostly referencing the situation with my wife, potentially soon to be my ex-wife. It's looking like it's been. She's been to the crisis center. She's supposed to be going to treatment, but something tells me she's not on that path. It's hard. It's just really hard. I I'm doing somewhat better personally. I'm coming up with some financial plans to try to keep myself afloat. So I'm getting some relief in terms of my stress on that level. But my belief in me and her mending our fences has really been diminished. I'm afraid, and I'm 99% sure, she's on a very hard drug. And that's partly why this affair and this entire scenario has unfolded, including the depression, the anxiety, the alcohol addiction that's resurfaced. It's all been a manifestation of her crossing a few lines that she never should have crossed. And I'm pretty sure she's doing a pretty hard drug, a legal drug, that's all this other stuff is masking. And she confirmed herself to me, probably in a bit of a confession, that this guy was doing this. And I asked her, like, you're not, right? And kind of let her almost off the hook. And she's like, no. But then having reflected for the last 10 days about things and seeing her behaviors and what choices she's still making, I'm pretty certain that she's been partaking with him. And for the most part, people who are on drugs hang around with people who are on drugs. And if they're not around, if that other person's not on drugs, those people who are on drugs can't wait to get away from those people and be back in an environment where they're safe to do their consumption without the discerning eye of those who aren't partaking. And I've talked with a few friends of mine who went pretty hard down some of these roads, and they are 100% sure she's doing it. 100%. Like, there's no doubt in any of their minds. And I'm proud to say I got some doubt, but that's what love is. It's amazing how naive love can make you. The number of times I told myself this last year, my wife would never do that, and didn't entertain the thought. To only have those thoughts and those words shoved back in down my throat, like, yeah, you dumbass, you're an idiot. And I'm normally a pretty perceptive person. If this had been my kids, I think I'd have been on top of it, but my wife was a pretty together person for 7-8 years, and just a responsible. She ran a homeless center during the pandemic. She has a lot of capabilities. So a lot of things that she's done this last year plus, it's like no way she would do that. Enough about that. It has been hard. Keep me in your thoughts and prayers. We got some great donations the last episode. Thank you so much. I still need more. We have mortgages to pay that she's not paying anymore. So anybody who wants to help pledge some money to this cafe, to this channel, it's very appreciated right now. I'm trying to figure out how to manage covering her side of the kitty. I got a few things I'm working on, but even those things take money. And so I appreciate everyone who's helped and supported. I want to thank my friend Robert Jackson, who drove up from Chicago last Sunday. So he came up, a brother from the south side of Chicago. He's been a fireman, emergency service worker, working with some of the saddest stories in the city of Chicago on the south side for years. He's nearing retirement. He's watched the channel for a while. He drove up here and spent the day with me, and we sat and we talked and reflected on music and race and America and Chicago and all this great stories. And it was a fantastic conversation that I felt enriched from. And I think he felt the same way. And we went to dinner that night in in Rochester here. And really a great new friend. That was fantastic. One other thing I want to talk about real quick, and I've been loath to do this. I'm not one to want to sit and talk garbage about something, but I bought up some records from a guy in Italy. And I did this 2 years ago from this guy, and it took him 2 months to ship the stuff. And he kept saying he was looking for a record that was missing that I had purchased, an Art Pepper record. He ended up never finding the Art Pepper record, which I think he sold to somebody else, to be honest, because he'd given me a break on it. Probably someone else said, "Oh, I'll give you this much for it," and he pretended he lost it. And he ended up sending me something else in its place, and I got the records eventually. But when I was doing my Norman Granz binge this past spring, I decided to buy another 5 records from him that were all Verve Clef titles that I needed for my discography. And they were all, well, decently priced, tough to find titles. We bundled them together. We bought them off of the site, off of Discog, because he wanted to ship them and save himself some fees. And we agreed to do that. And I kind of shot myself in the foot by doing that. And it's now been 4 months. I still have not seen them. I haven't so much got a tracking number from the guy. He said they shipped months ago and that they're lost in the mail or something. He's not even been very good about responding to my emails. And I've gotten a few responses, but usually I'll message him 5 times before I hear back from the guy. And I know he travels for work and he's gone a lot, and I've tried to be patient, I've tried to be understanding. But I'm going to do it for the first time ever. I'm going to be like, be very careful when you buy from this seller on Discogs named Cosmic Music out of Italy. It's not Cosmic Music, it's Cosmic Daddy. And he does have a nice store, some good stuff, and I'm sure if I'd bought through Discogs, I would have had avenues and channels to get my money back or whatever. So part of this is on me for having made that choice, but it's been 4+ months. I'm still waiting for these records. They're kind of, at this point, big holes in my Clef Norgran discography that I kept assuming were going to show up at some point, and they still might, but it's been over 4 months. And this guy's, twice now, he's been very unresponsive. And again, so he's got some good stuff in the store, and I'm probably giving him more advertising here than he's worth. But Cosmic Daddy, be warned if you buy from this guy. He might ship your stuff, and he might respond to you, or he might just ignore you for weeks at a time, which is what he's done. And I hope they show up still, because I haven't rebought any of those 5 titles yet. I'm like, the second I rebuy one, it's going to show up. And who knows, customs and like people, packages get lost. And I kept asking if they got shipped back to him, and he barely responds. And when he does, like, no, I haven't seen them. Just keep waiting. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I got a refund. Well, let's just keep waiting a little longer. And now I haven't heard from him in about a month again. I probably sent him 5 emails. So just be warned, Cosmic Daddy. And it's not someone I've been loath to do this. I've thought about doing it for a while. I'm like, I'm going to keep giving him some time. But it is what it is. It's probably the first time I've really been burnt. And whether or not he shipped them, I don't even know. I think he did. And I keep hoping I'm going to go to the post office one day and they're going to be there and be, oh, happy day. But that hasn't been the case so far. On a lighter note, my baseball team, the Blue Jays, got swept by the Minnesota Twins, who are an awful team. The Twins won their division, but it was one of the worst divisions in the history of baseball. The Jays weren't a great team either, but they were better than the Twins. And the Twins had lost 18 consecutive playoff games, which is a record in sports. 18 consecutive playoff games, not series, games. So it means in a series you didn't win 1 game. And that's because they've often gotten to the playoffs in that weak division and then had the crap kicked out of them by better teams in better divisions. A lot of them lost over to the Yankees, and the Yankees have always been a far better club. Some of them were to the Red Sox and the Angels and just the Tampa Rays, and the AL East is a tough division. But on a lighter note, like I said, it's only baseball. It's not a big deal. I don't really follow sports that much except for baseball, and I don't watch it. I just kind of watch it in the paper. But I cried to my brother when they got swept by the Twins, who, like I said, who had won in 20 years in the playoffs. What am I, frickin' Job over here? All the stuff that keeps unfolding. And, I mean, life's trials keep you on your toes and keep you feeling objective and recognizing what you're going through is still light compared to what most people deal with on this planet. So I'm going to leave that at that. But better days are ahead. I think I'm figuring things out financially. My brother's going to help me renovate the basement and rent that out to either a couple or a couple different renters. That should offset some of the income I lost. I am starting to get older and seeing some lines in my. I mean, wasn't thrilled about that the other day when I noticed that, but all the same, we're blessed, you know, and we are trying to stay positive and trying to. And my heart hurts for my wife badly. I mean, romance aside, she's a friend and someone I care about dearly. She's been part of my life for 1/5 of my life for over 10 years. And to know that she's gone down such a destructive path and feels so poorly about herself. And it's just heartbreaking. It really is. I want to talk about a few records real quick. I want to thank the Jazz Bums for having me on a few weeks ago. I have a new phone as of like 3 weeks ago, and I'm always kind of challenged by new phones. I had some thing pop up, I clicked on it, and it exited me from the conversation. I was getting ready to leave anyway, and so for anyone who was watching, I didn't mean to disappear. It was me being a dumbass, kicking something on my phone, and it closed me out. I didn't feel like going through the process of rejoining the conversation. But I do appreciate those guys for having me on. I always enjoy it. It's a great conversation. I do not always enjoy conversing about pressings and that kind of stuff, but I mean, the Jazz Bums themselves are great guys, and some of the guys on their panel are also just fantastic. A couple of those guys on there, I was a little bit like, they're pretty one-dimensional how they were talking and perceiving things, but I'm sure there's many who would say that about me, that I'm one-dimensional in how I talk about things, and I don't talk about pressings and cables enough, but I'm sure there's plenty of cable talk out there, and I do love a great sounding system. I think people misconstrue that, but I just find a lot of the elitism and the assumptions made by a lot of those people that they're hearing more than I'm hearing. What are you hearing that I'm not hearing? Please enlighten me, because I've never heard one of them once share something that they heard musically or something that they felt spiritually or kinetically that, I mean, for the most part, the perceptions are this pressing sounds better than that pressing. If you're hearing more than me, why aren't you hearing hidden, secret, emotional context? To me, that shoots bullet holes in all those ideologies that, oh, I'm hearing more than anybody else because of my sound system. If you're hearing more than anybody else, you should be seeing, feeling more than anybody else as well. And why aren't you sharing those advanced feelings? If you're hearing it so much clearer than I am, where is that advanced insight? What is that art making you feel that my eyes or my ears can't perceive? So, I mean, again, that's neither here nor there. It's not a conversation I really want to spend too much time on, but fantastic Chris Connor. Chris Connor was absolutely hugely influential at the Bethlehem label as Bethlehem was kind of finding its way in the early 50s. Gus Wilde was kind of doing pop, early R&B, early rock and roll stuff, which, again, early rock and roll is basically jump blues, rhythm and blues. None of that stuff sounds like rock and roll as we understand rock and roll to sound. But they didn't really have a sound or a direction. This is in the 45 era. He hires Creed Taylor. Yes, that Creed Taylor of CTI and A&M and Verve and Impulse. And his first real job in the industry was for Bethlehem. And some of those great Bethlehem sessions with Johnny Hartman and Chris Connor, Creed Taylor is a big part of that. And he was really kind of an untrained professional. He just said this is what he wanted to do, and he told Gus Wilde he could do it. And he kind of did it. And he was at the helm of many of the most important jazz labels in their most important eras in the jazz canon. But he was really behind and pushing Gus Wilde to go into a jazz direction. And Gus was a little hesitant. He wasn't sure the direction Bethlehem was going to go. And with Creed Taylor's guidance, they went down that road, 53, 54, some incredible 10 inches they made that are great modern post-bop jazz, some great vocal stuff, great covers with Burt Goldblatt. Bethlehem's early body of work is really outstanding. And then the early BCP series, which runs to like 81 titles, the early 6000 series, which has about 80 titles as well. Most of that's outstanding, even though some of the later stuff in that series was stuff that King bought and put out with the Bethlehem logo on it, because King bought Bethlehem at one point to help. At first they borrowed kind of Gus Wilde some money to help keep Wilde afloat, and then they ended up just kind of consuming the Bethlehem label and using it for some of their jazz titles to be kind of pressed on. and then they kind of just folded up the Bethlehem label, right? Probably around 61 or 2. It just ceases to be. One of the greatest inner label logos, the wonderful scarlet red, the wonderful silver wreath. Chris Connor does a couple 10 inches with a fantastic trio, just with Vinnie Burke on the bass and the fantastic Joe Plume on the guitar. Those 10-inch records are fantastic. Her 12-inch sessions are also great. Somewhat less heralded. Let's say heralded. But I mean, look at the lineup on this. The great Ralph Sharon was a British piano player. The great Milt Hinton and O.C. Johnson on bass and drums. Joe Plume on the guitar once again. Herbie Mann on the flute, who's really fantastic on this. Kai Winding on the trombone with J.J. Johnson. And they're both bringing some fantastic dynamics and interloping between each other. And there's some great playing behind her wonderful singing on this. And the lovely cover. She, of course, recognizes her own importance at Bethlehem, and she wants to renegotiate her pay. And Wilde didn't really have the economic withholding to keep her, and so she went on to Atlantic Records pretty soon after this. And she makes a pretty incredible string of records for Atlantic Records as well. And those Chris Connor titles there are also really worth having. Chris Craft especially, but there's a lot of great Atlantic Chris Connor titles. But her Bethlehem work is really fantastic. Right now I'm listening to a fantastic record as well. It's on the Savoy label. Tough title to find. It's called Montage. And that's due to it being a collection of songs that just needed to be kind of packaged together. There's some Donald Byrd and Hank Jones on here. Frank Foster, Paul Chambers, Kenny Clark. It's really a great session. Eddie Burt's on here, the great trombone player, who's one of the most fantastic trombone players that most people don't know much about. But, I mean, seriously, this is a great record. And it's a tough record to come by. Great old Savoy album cover. And I really am enjoying listening to that right now. And Eddie Burt certainly shines all over this session. And I initially was looking for it for quite a while because the Donald Byrd stuff was on there. Some of the stuff I've been listening to as of late is Brother Jack McDuff. This is a fantastic record, honestly, something slick. And again, the lineup on this is just outstanding. You have Jack McDuff on the organ with Kenny Burrell on the guitar. Anything Burrell-wise is just amazing. Joe Dukes is on the drums. And you get Harold Vick or Eric Dixon on the tenor. They kind of switch off on a few tracks from 2 different sessions, probably. But anytime you have Kenny Burrell with an organ, it's a record worth finding. And it's something you can probably find for $15. Not the greatest cover, but it's still a fantastic record. The great Ruth Price, who is a singer that's often overlooked. She has some good stuff on contemporary. A record with Shelly Manne, if I recall. But she ends up at the Cap label, which is a record of a Tennessee label, if I remember. And just a great singer. She's in a little bit more of a saccharine setting here with the Norman Paris Trio and Quintet. But, I mean, I listened to it twice the other day. It's a really nice record. Her records on Cap are good stuff and worth seeking out. The party's over. Ruth Price. Good stuff. Next, we're going to talk about a great Blue Note session by the young, talented Freddie Hubbard. I think this might have been a second title, actually. The Changing Scene is fantastic. Medium tempo ballad. The lineup on this is Hank Mobley with McCoy Tyner on the piano, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. So it's one of those great Riverside Blue Note, New York style, modern hard bop sessions. Hubbard, for all intents and purposes, is the heir apparent to Clifford Brown. Just a dynamic roller coaster of a player with clean, well-hit tonality, clean enunciation. His lines have long, powerful energy that maintain their velocity and expression throughout the entire phrasing. A lot of trumpet players will start off kind of bright and kind of fade as they lose their breath and their energy and their strength. Hubbard can do these acrobatic things and maintain that same velocity throughout, like Clifford Brown. An acrobatic player with a great style and a fiery disposition. I mean, there seems to be more fire from his horn than from the man himself. Hubbard seems kind of a gentle spirit in a way, but boy, when he put that trumpet to his mouth, few people can blow with more dexterity and nimbleness and more expression than Hubbard, especially at tempo. A lot of players that trump on the trumpet at tempo lose expression and tonality, and they lose their ability to communicate. It becomes notes and overlapping words that you can't discern anymore. And he manages to stay very deep in his expression and keeps you feeling a narrative. Great record here by Lee Morgan, which always deserves cafe play with a great cover. It's a classic record pressing from probably 2000, 1999. It's an interesting lineup with Curtis Fuller, not Ornette Coleman, sorry, George Coleman, I believe it is. Must be. And then Paul Chambers, Paul Bryant on the piano, and Dave Taylor, is it? Art Taylor. Why does that look like an A? Oh, it's drums. Taylor, yeah. Duh. That's a D for drums, as you can see. But Art Taylor, Paul Bryant, Paul Chambers, Ray Bryant, sorry. Again, great cover. Classic Records does a nice job reproducing these covers and these Blue Note titles. And probably up until the Tone Poet stuff, the Classic Pressing Records were probably the premier Blue Note reissue series, up to date. And those titles still fetch pretty good money on the reused market. A record I can play in the cafe almost endless is Grant Green's Green Street with Ben Tucker and Dave Bailey. Just fantastic blues, black church gospel. Grant's a very fun, nimble player who plays in a bebop style. Not a lot of chording and not a lot of intricate effect. He's more of just a guy who's playing single line notes and giving you a story and a narrative and playing like a horn player. You know what I mean? A lot of, like I said, single notes, whereas the guitar is capable of playing multiple notes with chords. Sonny Chris, a fantastic record. My buddy Al Wong was in here the other day. Great friend of mine. Him and his wife Lydia. They've been here 15 times from Owatonna, which is about an hour away. And he recognized Sonny Chris's tone rather quickly. A bit like Jackie McLean in terms of its sourness, its brittleness, its brightness. It feels like it's almost cracking. It's so bright. It's a bit lemony, but it's also quite intense and quite spirited and moved. He's got an edge to him. This is on the Imperial label. This is a Japanese reissue of it. His 3 titles on Imperial are incredibly hard to come by, and you're best off just trying to find that one out of Japan. They're worth having, though. They're great records. Lorez Alexander. I might have talked to you about this one already, but again, I wanted to talk about it again because I listened to it again. Just great gospel, blues, affectation. She's just a wonderful player with a lot of spirituality, a lot of groove and feeling. You find her stuff there's a few titles on Impulse, and that's where I first heard her, and she's just a great, great emoter. But her early work on the King label is also worth seeking out, and it's very connected to the black community. You can just really feel the black church and the Baptist kind of leanings of the community. And a lot of stuff on the King label has that real strong connection. So that's what we've been listening to as of late. It's been great stuff, and I've been pretty busy with other things. And sometimes I'll play a record 3 times in a row, just back to back, just to kind of really digest it, and kind of almost too busy to pull out more records from the cabinets, which is silly, but I got a lot on my mind, obviously. Keep me in your thoughts and prayers. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We appreciate all the subscriptions. It helps the algorithms, and obviously we're never going to go viral talking about jazz, race, and American history, but the music does have such an important value and meaning, enough to make a grown brother from Chicago drive 5 hours to come talk to me, because he likes the way what I have to say about this music makes him feel about his own history and past. The way that it makes the music come to life, discussing the insight of the times that it was made in. And I think it's such an important aspect of understanding and feeling any art form, is to know the history and the times that it was made in, because that's usually what it's commenting on some level. The book of Revelations wasn't talking about the end times. It was talking about the Romans and their day coming. Mark Twain was talking about that massive river. And if you didn't know about that river, you don't really get Mark Twain. Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. If you don't know about the history of Russian wars, the 1812 Overture doesn't have a lot of validity. It's just sound and notes and music. But to put the context into the art gives it its meaning. And I think for the most part, that's what most artists are want to convey, is the story that they're trying to tell, the life that they're living and how it's making them feel. And to step into those shoes and to get that electric connection and the shared energy of what this person's experience has made them go through and how they're putting that into their art. And jazz is such an immediate and honest reflection of that. So there's few art forms that are more capable of reflecting a man's soul's condition than jazz. And I just think it's really tragic that so many people are listening to it as a way to test their audiophile equipment and as a way to feel sophisticated and as a way to show how modern and how difficult their ears are, and not hearing what the art's really saying. And it's saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil. That's what it's saying. It's saying that, man, my struggles are tough, but this music is a mask that I can wear and participate in, and it will shelter me from all this darkness. It'll give me guidance and light and help me find joy. And then when I go to the club tonight and play for the village, I'm going to bring that same protection to them and share that joy with them. And that's an incredible response to tyranny. It's an incredible response to oppression, to respond with joy and art and make an art form that's one of the most beautiful art forms in the history of mankind. That's a special thing that we should laud, and we should acknowledge what made this art what it is. Because without it, we're just missing the point. Y'all have a great day. Keep in your thoughts and prayers. Again, anyone else who wants to pledge anything towards this channel through Patreon, through YouTube itself, through PayPal, it's really helps me out right now. I got no money to buy records right now. I got no money to. I'm keeping food on the table, and I have my 18-year-old. I had to kick him out the other day too because he was getting violent and attacking me and stuff. It's been crazy, and he's struggling with his mom and his own mental health. And his mom should have been here helping deal with his stuff, but she's been so absent dealing with her own mess. So it's been a trial by fire, but all you can do is overcome and survive. And I'm not complaining. I'm just expressing that this is what I've been going through. It's impacted how many episodes I'm making. There's just been days where there's fires to put out and I can't make the episode I was planning on making that day. And I'm still trying to give you the best content that I know how and to participate in this as much as I can. And I also want to definitely reiterate how much the jazz reminds me of how lucky and blessed I am and how little my struggle is compared to watching your neighborhood get burned down in a riot, or hearing about your cousin or brother getting lynched in a town, or watching your own child go to jail for the rest of his life for something he didn't do. When there's injustice of that nature, the pain and the sorrow, it's unrectifiable. I can get through this. I can swim to the other side of the shore and find my way, and I will. And jazz reminds me all the time of how blessed and how lucky I am and how much worse things could be. People live in war-torn villages where mercenaries macheted their families. I haven't seen that. So the Job in me has a long way to go. Y'all be blessed, like I said. Y'all be safe. Appreciate you all. Much love to everybody. All those who have supported the channel financially so far. But big love to you. Blessings are coming your way. I mean that. Keep strong, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.